Okay. So Hong Jiang, it's always good to get together with you, and I always feel that as we talk, and as we roll out these points on Chinese culture, I become more Chinese.
That's wonderful.
What do they say? When you're Chinese, the whole world is in love, or something like that?
That's right, yeah. Aren't we all Chinese? That would be a great idea.
In our hearts, we're all Chinese.
That's right, yeah. It's almost like we're all Hawaiian, we're all American, we're all Chinese.
I was, yes, sort of like that, that sign after 9/11 in Paris, nous sommes Américains, two sommes Américains, the whole world is American.
Yeah.
I remember getting in an elevator one time, and I was with a friend of mine, and I told him I was converting to Chinese. And there was a young Chinese national person in the elevator, and he said, you can't do that. I said, why not?
It's interesting, this show that we're going to be talking about, the Shen Yun show, is carrying that very idea, at least for me, that we are all Chinese. And that's because the show is really going very deep into the Chinese culture, and it comes out that we can all share the stories we may or may not be familiar with, but the values of the story, the lessons of the story, the beauty and the compassion, the virtue, all of that, it looked like, this is something we all share. We're all Chinese, so it's not far from the truth.
No, and I believe that if you go all the way back, to the birth of mankind and all, it all started there, so that means that we're all related, right?
That's right.
We are all related.
Exactly.
I don't care what they say. And,
yeah.
And furthermore, that if we're all related, then the culture of every place in the planet belongs to all of us. So we should treasure every culture. Huh?
Exactly, yeah. I deeply believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what makes you want to talk about the Shen Yun show here on May 3rd, 4th, and 5th? At Blaisdell Concert Hall?
It's actually that very idea you talk about. We're all Chinese. That idea of the universal beauty and value of the Shen Yun show that really drew me in to support the show as a volunteer. And I've been supporting the show in the last 5-6 years. This is the number sixth year that the show is coming to Honolulu, and it's coming to the Blaisdell every year. This year's the first weekend in May. And it's the beauty of the stories, but they're also very specific background of the show that not everybody know about, and it's also a story that need to be told.
Well, let's break it down. First, what kind of a show is this? Like I saw a show at Manoa Theater last week. It was very good, by the way. It was called Next to Normal. If you have a chance, you should go see it. It's a wonderful show. It's a musical about mental illness. I'm not kidding. Worth seeing.
Yeah.
But it's not a show like that, right?
No.
What kind of a show is it?
So this is Shen Yun. I need to start with the name. Shen Yun, it means divine grace. And it is about bringing back
Hence the picture.
The cultures and
picture
values
of
5,000 years of Chinese culture.
And let me show the big picture.
That's actually the poster.
Major picture.
Yeah.
Major picture.
And it's just so beautiful. And every year you see a major figure like this dancing in midair, and just the grace of it.
Well,
it gave you the feel of what it is already.
What is this woman? She's dressed in a kind of an angelic outfit. It's like an angel. In the Western tradition, anyway, is it the same in the Chinese tradition?
As I said, the Shen Yun means divine grace, and the Chinese people have to believe that the culture is bestowed by the heaven. So you could say, the beings, the Chinese, now we're talking about everybody's Chinese, that we all come from that place of purity and the truth, the compassion there. And if that place is a beautiful place, then one way to say is that it's a place of the angels, right? And the dancing, picture here, it just woman
she seems like an angel.
Yeah,
she looks a lot like you, actually, Hong Jiang.
I wish I could look that beautiful. And so it's the message of the show. It is about goodness. It's about beauty, it's about virtue and compassion, and it's all the good things about the Chinese culture that's being brought out in one night, one show, And what's interesting about this show is that it's the most authentic Chinese show, and it's not produced in China.
Ah.
And that's the story I want to
Okay.
tell.
Yes, I
who
want to hear
are
about that.
the Shen
We
Yun
spoke
dancers?
about that earlier.
Yeah. So why is it, people say, oh, Shen Yun show, Chinese culture, it must be coming from China. And it's not. And I'll tell you why. This Shen Yun group is based in New York City. It's an international company that draws on the best classical Chinese dancers in the world. And this is the only company in the world that specializes in classical Chinese dance. And not only do they have the best Chinese dancers from all over the world, they also are really about bring back the essence, the real authentic essence of Chinese culture. And this is the kind of work you cannot find in China. China doesn't really have the soil, so to speak, to do this kind of work.
So now
And-
you're part of NTD, the New Tang Dynasty television network,
That's right.
which is also a Chinese phenomenon outside of China.
That's right.
Is there a relationship here?
The relationship is this. So I teach at UH, I teach in the geography department. My specialty is on China. And I've been helping the Chinese TV station called New Tang Dynasty Television. That's Oceanic 698.
A volunteer.
US
You're a
based.
volunteer
Yeah,
for
I'm
that, too.
volunteering. And for the Shen Yun show, I'm doing the it's entirely voluntary. And the connection is this, that the TV station is based in the US and broadcasts uncensored news about China. And we all know the news in China, a lot of it is censored. And the part of the TV station's mission is also bring back the Chinese culture that's been destroyed. I just realized that did I have the on?
No, I turned it on for you.
Okay, thank you. The mission of the TV station, especially in the part of a cultural revival, is very similar to the Shen Yun show's mission. And Shen Yun show is traveling in the world, and our TV station is also broadcasting to the world. So in that sense, that's the connection there. And it's about bring out the best of Chinese culture to share with everybody in the world. And that's what Shen Yun is doing fabulously, and that's why our TV station is sponsoring the show in Hawaii.
Oh, so
Yeah.
the TV station is sponsoring, but kind of like promoting the show
Yeah,
here.
on a voluntary basis.
for its viewers everywhere.
For not just for its viewers, but also to everybody, because we some of us are started to promote the Shen Yun show in Honolulu before the TV station came here. So the group of volunteers that who have been kind of devoted to the promotion of the Shen Yun show in the last 5-6 years.
Is it fair to say that there's a following for not only for NTD but for this Chinese culture show here in Hawaii?
For this show,
Is Hawaii a special place as far as this is concerned?
I think it's both yes and no. Hawaii has a lot of Chinese cultural presence here, and a lot of Chinese people have moved here over 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the Shen Yun show is definitely a great way for the Chinese people to get back to know more about the Chinese culture, return to the Chinese roots. But the Shen Yun show is done in such a way that it is presenting to the world. So I keep telling people the Shen Yun show is not a Chinese show. It is a world-class show. And it's so great that it's rated by some critics as the best show, period. Not just the best Chinese show. And I have some comments here from people like Robert Stromberg, who is the artistic director of Avatar. And he is saying this is absolutely beautiful. It has become this one big poetic event. It was so inspiring. I think I may have found some new ideas for the next Avatar.
Interesting.
And that's because of the technology of the backdrop and the color of the show is just so strikingly beautiful.
It's funny you should say that because my walking buddy, with whom I walk almost every day,
Yeah.
is familiar with the Shen Yun show.
Okay.
And he said also the same thing. It's the best show in the world.
Yeah, a lot of people
It's a
saying
little
that.
over the top, but I guess
Yeah.
if everybody says that, it must be true, eh?
And listen to this one. This is from Richard Knema, who's a Broadway critic. And he's saying, I've reviewed over 3,000 to 4,000 shows since 1942. I gave this production 5 stars. That's the top. I've seen enough Broadway shows that still cannot compare to what I saw tonight. The best way to use is mind-blowing. I mean, that's the caliber of the show. And I think it's not just because of the skills. There are several components to the show. They have the best classical Chinese dancers in the world. People, second-generation dancers, Chinese from...
all from outside China.
Some from China.
Okay.
Some of the best, choreographers actually are from China. And, but they have Chinese people from U.S., Canada, Australia, France, Taiwan,
So
you
it is
name
a
it.
global
It's a
show.
global.
It embraces Chinese culture wherever it is.
Exactly. So they had the best classical Chinese dancers. You know, the Chinese dance has a long tradition, over 3,000 years, and that's the source of acrobatics, and even has a connection with martial arts. So skill-wise, it's a very, very delicate system of dance. And it's very, very expressive. So you want to see, if you see the woman that's dancing very gently, and a man dancing so energetically, and the people commenting on the show said, I've never seen man dancing like that energetic. And it's really the Chinese cultural understanding of the contrast of the yin and yang. And that's getting together, putting together so well. Not only they have the best dancers, the costumes are all handmade. And going back to the authentic tradition of how long is the sleeves, and what's the collar, how high, what is the hairpiece, and how high is the shoe, bottom of the shoe. They get to the T in terms of their research, and they have a large group of researchers researching and making new costumes every year. And the orchestra, it's a live orchestra coming in.
Western
blending
instruments?
Chinese and Western musical instruments. It's one of a kind. And
Combination.
and it's a combination, but the combination works so beautifully. And you have the Chinese instruments like the pipa, the erhu, the Chinese voice, two-string violin there. You actually have Chinese percussion there. So that's the connection there. And the backdrop is dynamic. And I'll give you some footage that you might be incorporating with this program here.
Is the show dynamic too? In other words, does it change?
It changes so quickly.
Is it annual?
It's annual, and every year is new complete show. Completely new show every year. They have a new dances, new costumes, new music scores. Everything is new every year.
So it's kind of like a snapshot of how this embrace we talked about, embracing Chinese culture all over the world. It's a snapshot of how we're doing this year.
That's right. And they pick, so their focus is on legends and stories from 5,000 years of Chinese culture. That's why you have New York Times putting out their comments saying this is the 5,000 years of Chinese culture in one night. And it is literally so because the Chinese story, Chinese culture is so long that it has so many stories you can work with. So each year they pick different stories. They pick stories from different region and different stories from different dynasties. And that's why you have such a kind of rich display of a culture. Each show each year would have about 20 programs. 20 to 22, 23
A program
programs.
is a story.
Stories, each segment.
Well, I'm having a recollection. I went to Xi'an back in 2007 or so.
Yeah.
And in Xi'an, we went to a dinner theater.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is going to be for the tourists, and I wasn't all that excited about it. But then we got into the dinner theater, and they did what you're describing, a cultural story from way back when, and it had music, and it had sets and costumes that were unbelievable.
Yeah,
and it was beautiful. It was like a moving work of art. Is what
okay.
It was.
Yeah.
I still have photographs because they let you take photographs.
Oh, that's good. The Shen Yun doesn't allow you to take
Oh, okay.
photographs.
Oh, well, that's because it's so good. That's why.
Because you just have to focus on the show and not to distract other people.
But I don't think people realize, what's involved when you say story. It's a story told in song and dance and costume and lighting, and scenery.
It's almost like a magical journey through 5,000 years of Chinese culture and in different regions. You have stories. Some of the stories you probably are familiar with. You went to Xi'an and saw the terracotta warriors, right?
Yes, right.
And last year they had a story of terracotta warrior, and that was played. That's the Qin dynasty. I may not have it here. So that's the 2,000 years ago. And you have other stories in the Tang Dynasty. You have this monk journey to the west to retrieve the Buddhist scriptures, and from that came this epic story of journey to the west. And there's the different personalities there, the Monkey King story there, and so every year Shen Yun would take an episode of the journey to the west and play that out. And amazingly, what they can do is with the backdrop, because like I said, the backdrop is moving. It's like you go to a live movie theater, right? So the Monkey King is almighty, and he can go up to the high heavens and come down, fly to the earth, and they do that. They have the dancer on the stage, and then suddenly you see him going backstage and fly into the heavens. And the heavenly scene are brought into closer to the stage, and you see these, fairies coming from the moon, being called onto the earth and dance with it. That's why you say, well, the dancer is almost like angels, because she probably came from the moon or from the heavens, and that's part of the Chinese culture.
Yeah.
The stories that's danced out there.
But Las Vegas has nothing on this.
They just played in Las Vegas.
Is that right?
They finished their show. It's all sold out. And they've been having sold-out shows in many cities. Yeah, they just finished their Las Vegas show, and they just also finished their San Francisco show.
So we have Hong Jiang with us. She's a professor of geography at Manoa, and she does a lot of volunteer work, I would say, in advancing Chinese culture. And it's really remarkable how much she's doing.
It's really rewarding, again, for the audience, we're talking about the Shen Yun show that is coming to the Blaisdell Concert Hall May 3 to 5. There's only 3 days, 4 shows only, and this is the world-class production. It's really about the authentic Chinese culture being presented in the best way, so moving, beautiful way in just one evening, one
So
night.
different strokes for different folks. Now, when you go, okay, as a person who knows about this, who's studied this, who's steeped in it, who loves it in the sense that you will volunteer for it.
That's right.
When you go, what kind of experience do you have watching it? What does it mean to you to be there?
I remember the first time I saw the show, that was 2007, and the show didn't come here. That was show was played in New York, and I was able to watch the show from this little screen on the computer, because the New Tang Dynasty television each year would do one broadcasting, and I was moved to tears. I was moved literally to tears.
Why were you moved to tears?
And because I'm from China, and I come from China, left China about over 20 years ago, and only after I left China, I really get the chance to know about Chinese culture, because that's not taught in China. A lot of the Chinese cultural background, cultural traditions are not taught at schools. Because this is since 1949, Communist Party took over control of China, and education
Communist Party
is totally
doesn't
different.
want to perpetuate these.
Not only does the
points.
party doesn't want to perpetuate the culture, the Communist Party is responsible for destroying much of the Chinese culture. It's just heartbreaking to see all the destructions. And so I really feel, and that I became more Chinese coming out of China, because I really wanted to see what is Chinese culture and why maybe there's something unique that I can share with people. And I had to relearn, and not relearn, just basically learn anew the Chinese culture, and that became part of my work. My work is on cultural geography of China. So through that work, I also get, basically personal learning, and I really feel this is such a beautiful culture. It's a culture that's very, very, it's a gracious culture, it's benevolent, it's a great values. We're talking about, all the great values of, compassion, loyalty, filial piety, virtue. That's part of the Chinese culture, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. So all of those great cultures and great cultural stories were a lot of the relics were destroyed. And classical Chinese dance, it's very hard to find classical Chinese dance kind of performance inside China now. So finally, after reading all the books on Confucianism and Taoism and Book of Change, and suddenly I see this show. I said, this show so beautifully present the essence of Chinese culture in a way that I could never imagine, and I've never seen anything like that.
So let me get it
that's when
straight.
when
A
I
show
started.
like this that played in Las Vegas, that you have reviews from all around the world, that keeps sort of reinventing itself by embracing Chinese culture wherever you can find it, but mostly outside of China.
That's right.
You couldn't see this show in China?
No, you cannot see this show in China. I think like you said, in China, you see these beautiful shows. I think the Chinese people have a need to want to go back to the cultural tradition. But the social and political environment in China is still not fitting. It's not right.
So what's the difference between the show I saw in the dinner theater in Xi'an and the show that's coming on May 3rd?
I can't, because I didn't see the show you saw in Xi'an. I can compare to Shen Yun to shows I've seen in China, because I love
please
the
do
arts.
that. Please compare.
And I remember seeing shows in a kind of a classical Chinese costume, and even classical Chinese musical instruments and everything. And it was really nice and beautiful. The skill set of this show trumps everything that I've ever seen.
What do you mean by that?
In terms of the highly skilled dancers, in terms of the ability of these dancers. This is a classical
I know
Chinese
somebody
dance.
who studies ballet.
Yeah, it's probably a Chinese counterpart of the Western ballet. I think the difference is probably the Chinese dance is more subtle and more expressive.
And more difficult?
And I think it's more difficult, but I'm not a dancer. I'm sure ballet is difficult as well in its own way, right? But here's the difference that from my kind of layperson's impression. I check on the ballet's website and Shen Yun's website. And Shen Yun's website is just shenyun.com. And you see the photos there. And the Western ballet is more kind of straight lines and more masculine. And the Chinese dance feels more subtle, more round shape. And they're more there for you to savor. And of course, I study China. I'm Chinese, and maybe I have a bias here.
Well, it goes to my next question.
Yeah.
How am I going to react? This could bring you to tears because this is your tradition, and perhaps it's been lost in some ways. So now you have the opportunity to regain it, and that means a lot. Especially if you have a sort of a historical and, I was going to say cultural connection, but it's almost it's a family connection. It's almost like a
That's
DNA,
right. Exactly.
an ancestral kind
exactly.
of connection.
So what do you get?
What
right?
do I get? Yeah.
Okay. From the comments, from the critics' comments, you can see that critics see this show as the best show. And it's not because they have experienced the loss of culture and suddenly they rediscovered it. It's more because of perhaps the show itself touches them in different ways, right? Not about rediscovery. But I think arts are so universal. It may touch you and me in very same ways. It's the same string in the heart that the art is touching. And that is, our universal hearts and universal soul, and that's why I'm saying we have all been Chinese. And in that sense, because the show, the Shen Yun show, is about bringing out the universal values of the Chinese culture to share with everybody in the world. And also, if you look at the ideals of Chinese culture, it is actually about a culture that's for all under heaven. All under heaven, that's the Chinese ideal. And it's actually, Shen Yun show is not far from that ideal. That is a culture that's presented to everybody in the world, and everybody can partake in it. And if we go deep in our hearts, in our culture, in our soul, we actually find in the Shen Yun.
Because why? Because it's...
Because we're all human, I think.
We're all human, and we're talking about a culture here that goes way back. So I'm just trying to imagine, and I will go,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to imagine my own reaction, and I think in large part I would be asking myself, whoa, this goes way back into history. this is carrying a message from early in the development of China as a distinct, culture.
Yeah.
And I would want to be looking for those kind of historical touch points.
That's right.
And finding common denominators
That's
with
right,
other
yeah,
cultures
yeah.
from what is on the stage.
I can tell you, to describe it is one thing, to see it is another thing.
Yes.
Because we experience it personally.
Yes.
And the show really wants to highlight the essence of Chinese culture in terms of values, in terms of goodness, compassion, and virtue. And that's something we all treasure. And the stories of Shen Yun span 5,000 years, not just ancient. They usually have a couple of dances about the modern Chinese society, and they actually use Falun Gong as their story, because Falun Gong is this Chinese culture that dates back to ancient times, and today it's being persecuted in China. And in a way that Chinese Communist government continues the destruction of Chinese culture that necessitated the Shen Yun company to actually put this effort together to bring back and revive a Chinese culture. And a lot of people are talking about the Shen Yun show as the renaissance of a Chinese culture. It's a major effort to revive a Chinese culture. That's why you see, I think in some of these posters, again for the audience, we're talking about the Shen Yun show that is coming to the Blaisdell early May, and talking about the deep Chinese cultural connections there. And they say reviving 5,000 years of civilization. So the goal is not just to say, well, this is Chinese show and given to the Chinese. It's actually about the civilization we all share as humanity. And listen to this one. And this is talking about, so I see the show, I moved to tears. And this is somebody whose name is Jim Krill, who's a producer in Texas. And he said this is the finest thing, the finest event I've ever been to in my life. I was in tears. And he was in tears, right?
Cool.
He was in tears because of the human spirit, the dignity, the power, the love coming out of those people was astounding. And he said, he said, this is really about love and peace. And this peace is going to come from the Chinese culture, from the Chinese people. And that's something we can all experience and share. And he said something to the effect, I don't have the original quote, he said, to all the people, the Americans, for those who think you've seen arts, you've seen beauty, you owe yourself to see Shen Yun. And in the end, he said, this is the profound, quintessential end of entertainment. There's nothing beyond this, nothing.
Huh.
And that's a comment not by Chinese, and by somebody who I don't believe he is in China studies even. So again, it's the power of art that transcends culture. And I think that's what Shen Yun show is trying to share with everybody.
Spell it and spell the name of the website.
The website is just shenyun.com. It's ShenYun.com. Shenyun.com. And people can find these kind of flyers probably all over town. That's all by volunteers, by the way. So shenyun.com. And so this is a really, it just, the beauty of it is something that's hard to describe. I've seen these pictures.
Well, I got some more quotes in this flyer here.
That's right, yeah.
So here's from Donna Karen, director of DKNY. Mesmerizing, reclaiming the divinely inspired cultural heritage of China. And here's one from Chi Chow, who's a lead actor in Mao's Last Dancer.
Yeah, he was that dancer in that movie.
Ah.
Yeah.
A principal dancer with the Birmingham Royal Ballet in Britain, I guess. He says, demonstrating the highest realm in arts, Shen Yun inspires the performing arts world. Here's one from Dr. Ken Coates of the University of Waterloo. The sublime beauty is timeless, a passionate mix of culture, dance, and hope. It's absolutely wonderful and profound. And here's one from John McColgan of Riverdance.
That's right, yeah.
This is elegant, very athletic. You haven't mentioned that until now.
Athletic, exactly.
Very athletic, yeah. And very skilled. But
so those are the people who don't know about Chinese culture as much as I do. They probably know a lot. But they see beauty. in this show, even though you said, different strokes and different folks. But there's really, I think, Shen Yun trying to bring out the common humanity that we all share, and that runs very deep. And also, what's interesting is in LA, they just played in LA last month, and it sold out shows. And the Hollywood people go there, producers and a lot of award winners go there, and their comments were, as I remember, I don't remember the persons who said this, and they said, Hollywood cannot produce a show like this, and that's because the show is so pure and so beautiful.
You have to explain that.
And
why can Hollywood not produce a show like this?
I don't know. The
and
person
what is
didn't
the purity,
explain.
What's a pure show versus?
Let me explain how I experienced this Shen Yun show. So the Shen Yun show is the purpose is the goal is to accentuate, bring out the beautiful part of a Chinese culture to share. So a lot of people describe seeing the show as inspirational, as really moving, and because it's about good stories. It's about beautiful stories and good stories. A lot of spiritual stories from Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. And it's about hope for humanity. And I was just talking to somebody earlier today about it. We live in this corporation kind of run world, and we try to make our difference. And are we running against something that's so huge, so big that we can't do anything? And for me, the Shen Yun show gave me the hope that it's really in our individual heart. That's the most important. That in our heart we want to bring beauty, bring goodness to the world, and we can feel the goodness, and that is all that matters. And we can continue to do that.
It just occurred to me that you have stories, many stories, and the stories are statements of hope and other high thoughts and purity, if you will. But and with Chinese players, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Because the stories are from ancient China, and from ancient to current Chinese history.
And they're sung. They're sung. Or
There are songs as well, but mostly dance. There are a few songs. There are also, I believe, there's one violin solo, and people comment on the violin solo to say, the sound of that instrument. It's just so. It's just so.
Tear your heart out.
You can't describe that.
Yes.
And people are moved to tears by just listening to that.
Yes.
And I think it's the instrument's connection with the depth of Chinese culture that brings that out. It's not the physical thing. It's a spiritual connection there. Yeah, it's cultural.
What about the language, though? They speaking Mandarin?
They actually have MCs that would speak both Chinese and English, and they gave you the background of the story just enough so that you can enjoy the show, and they do it short enough so that it doesn't break the flow, and the numbers are going very quickly.
So you will always have somebody explain it to you in English so that you have an idea of what's going on.
It's not always. Like in between each number, you'll have the MC coming out, just introduce the next show very briefly, and then it's the dance, it's the show.
Yes.
That's right, yeah. And again, dance is a language that, dance and music are universal language that everybody can understand. Yeah.
And the costumes are part of this, I guess.
The costumes is a major part of it. Designers go to see the show and said, oh my God, the color, I can't duplicate that color. And I see some of these beautiful photos, I said, nothing compared to the real show. Because when I see the real show, I said, these colors I've never seen in real life. You have a mimicking of that, but these colors on the stage, it's heavenly. There's no other word to describe it except to say, it's so heavenly.
Well, you've described the show as a really phenomenal show, and I think by all indications that you have a lot of people who agree with you, and it's certainly worthwhile going. But, I'd like to know more about exactly how this came together. Because it hasn't been going on that long.
That's right, and I can only speak about my knowledge of it. So because I started to help in 2008 when the show first came here, and that's really moved by my seeing the show on TV. in 2007. And so 2007 was the first year the company started to tour globally. It's not
That's
long,
only,
you know,
what,
7, 8 years.
7 or 8 years. Yeah, that's quite recent.
The company was formed in 2006. It was combining several other efforts of people who are putting on shows from different parts of the world, trying to bring out the Chinese culture.
So who are they?
And I would need to say the Falun Gong group was one of the major force over there.
Yeah.
Because I think last time we talked about Falun Gong or Falun Dafa as a Chinese tradition that goes way back, and it's being persecuted in China. It's about truth, compassion, and forbearance, and it's about meditation. So there are artists who are practitioners of Falun Gong left China because of the persecution in China, and they want to do something meaningful. They want to really bring back this Chinese culture now. With them practicing Falun Gong, they really appreciate the Chinese culture even more and see the need in the world to actually benefit from a culture like this. So they put together some efforts, with a group of artists, mostly in North America, meaning US and Canada. So that was one of the groups. I think there are others. I'm not too sure about which others, but this is my limited knowledge about the Shen Yun company. So
it began in this country?
It began in this country, in the US. That's why their headquarters is in New York.
Chinese people. Born in China.
Some born in China, some from, like I said, US and Canada.
But I mean, some I want to say Issei and Nisei, but that's not the right term. Some having lived and having been born in this country, and whose parents were born and so forth in this country.
Chinese, that's right. Yeah, second, third generation Chinese, ethnic Chinese, who also wanted to, learn more about Chinese culture.
This is part of a larger thing.
It's a very large. It's a global.
It's not just the Shen Yun. It's a larger global coming together.
I believe so.
Of Chinese people, isn't it?
That's right.
It's like when I went back to New York. I was born and raised went to school in New York City, and I went back with a Chinese friend of mine actually, and she showed me my old neighborhood in Queens, and there were Chinese restaurants there as big as a football field, and there were Chinese markets just almost nearly as big.
Yeah,
I said, this is big, and what this represents is that the Chinese people are developing a community here and doing well.
Yeah.
And so there's all kinds of indicia, really, of this global coming together. And I think this is part of it.
I believe so because, we talk about living in a globalized world, and this world has a lot of good things that's coming with it. There are also a lot of challenges. And one of the challenges is that we are not really understanding each other that well, and there are a lot of issues and differences and conflicts, right? And how can we promote togetherness? And I think Shen Yun is helping in that direction. In terms of bring out the common humanity of all people to share with everybody, so that it's not just for the Chinese, it's for everybody. And we can see we do have so much in common. Plus, how can China contribute to the world? China in China today, that's where most Chinese people live, and the society is not, especially controlled by the Communist Party, is not doing all that positively to contribute to world peace and to the world in terms of just globalization and everything we talk about. So I think the Shen Yun show is telling, is indicating, at least directing or pointing out to the Chinese, this is how we can contribute to the world. Is really about bring back the culture to share with everybody in the world, and also for the Chinese people to go back to the Chinese cultural roots. And that's how the Chinese nation can stand up, can really contribute very positively to the world. It's through these values that's age old. It's about peace, it's about compassion, it's about love, it's about virtue. And if we can go back to that, not only China can become a better place, the global Chinese community and the world can have more to share.
Going back to my reaction when I go, and I will.
Yeah.
You know, on one hand, I would say that this view of Chinese culture, this soft and warm and loving, compassionate view of Chinese culture, will act as kind of a buffer for me in appreciating what the PRC does right now, which is sometimes not soft and warm, as you said, and loving.
I totally agree with you.
At the very least. So, so you say to yourself, well, it's sort of, I would look at the Chinese government, today's Chinese government, through a kind of lens. And the lens would be the lens of this historic Chinese culture. Mm-hmm. And I would see it perhaps in a softer, more, you know, a greater level of appreciation for the totality of what is there. But I would also have the possibility, and I really don't know what my reaction will be, but I would also have the possibility of reacting by saying, gee, this is a lost art. And it's nice that people are bringing it back, but in China, you can't have a show like this. And so I feel sad. I feel sad that the Chinese government has parted company with its own culture. Mm-hmm. And I would feel sad and maybe a little aggravated that we have lost this, and now, yes, we're trying to recapture it, but it's a small effort in a much larger, you know, reality.
I totally agree with you, and that also is, you know, in a similar way that I feel, because you know, I teach on China at UH, and I tell my students that there are many Chinas. There's one China that's controlled by the government, and the government of Chinese Communist Party is not doing the Chinese people, you know, fair, good in many ways, and so that's a very oppressive government. And you hear all these problems and violations in China and control, and at the same time, there are another China. This is the Chinese government is one, and another China is the Chinese nation and Chinese people. And that has always been beautiful, and Chinese people have suffered, and they want to go back to the roots. And there is a great cultural heritage that is there, not just for the Chinese, but for the world to share. So to think about, to try to hold different facets of China together in our mind, I think it's healthy. And that's why I think this Shen Yun show help a lot of people to see China in a very different light.
Yeah.
You know, some people have visited China and they've seen the China, and Chinese people are
very
great.
Excited about all the economic development.
That's
and all
right.
That.
But then they said, you know, I visited China, but the Shen Yun show allow me to experience China with my heart and with my soul, and it's giving me a very different China. It's a true China. It's, you know, beneath all the surfaces, you really can find the true value there, and that's always there, and that's always there for us to rediscover and re-experience and re-express, and that's what I think the Shen Yun show is about. Again, we're talking about the Shen Yun show that's coming to the Blaisdell in May 3 to 5. Yeah.
So let's talk about promotion. I have the distinct impression you'd like people to know about this.
Definitely, yeah. And I'd like to have, you know, everybody know about it. And I think, you know, one thing that gives me ease to talk about it is because I'm not a show promoter. I'm an educator, and this is totally my volunteer work. And I want to promote the show is because I want to promote beauty to people. I want people to really see the depth of Chinese culture and the depth of humanity's culture.
You want them to have an experience like you have.
That's right. And it's like when you have something that's profoundly good, you want to share. And it's really in that spirit that I want people to know about it.
Is there a political side of it for you? I mean, because, you know, your other activities suggest that you want to put the Chinese government in stark reality and have people appreciate some of the not so good things they do. Is that part of it for you?
That's interesting. So the other thing, other than promoting the Shen Yun, the Chinese culture, I've also been working on some of the education about human rights issues in China.
Yes.
And they actually go hand in hand.
I want to hear about that.
The reason being, who are persecuted is the ordinary Chinese people. And I feel for the ordinary Chinese people. And I also feel for one of the Chinese people who are persecuted is my aunt. who was
You told me.
Falun Gong
And
practitioner.
indeed, there's another show that we have put on Olelo where Hong Jiang talks about her aunt and talks
Yeah.
about the persecution of the Falun Gong. So there's a relationship between
There's a
the one and the
relationship
other.
there that's very personal, that I want to help people like my aunt, and they have the rights. And the connection there is also, why are Falun Gong practitioners persecuted? Only because they want to go back to the culture, to culture that we see in Shen Yun show that's so beautiful.
So this is
And
core to the
that's-
whole thing then.
Exactly.
This is core to what you're doing, in terms of human rights.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this is a statement that Chinese culture essentially values human rights.
That's
Chinese
right.
culture does not agree with what's going on, at least in organ harvesting and other offenses in China.
Definitely not. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So-
So in that way, it's connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So what else is happening in terms of the promotion here in Hawaii? I mean,
So we have a group of about a dozen volunteers who are helping to, if you see like flyers being handed out, and those are the volunteers who are doing that. And for my part, I do more of a promotion of the Shen Yun show in connection with culture. I'm an educator, like I said, and I gave talks about Chinese cultural values and what is the depth of Chinese cultural values and how to appreciate shows like Shen Yun. And part of that is to talk about Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, and some of the important Chinese cultural stories.
these classes you're talking about, is this part of the geography department or somewhere else?
No, this is more of my kind of a public talks that
Okay.
I gave to different clubs and associations.
In the public?
In the public,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And at UH, I do teach on China. It's a different kind of course, and yeah.
You're going to see me there.
Okay.
I'll be at the back of the room auditing.
That's good. I do have fun with the China course, and I do have people from the city each semester going there to audit. Yeah, yeah. So it's a great.
Well, this is a great, to me, this is part of building the bridge to Asia.
That's
It's
right.
a very interesting twist on building the bridge to Asia because, most people who talk about building the bridge to Asia are talking about a business bridge to Asia,
That's
talking
right,
about an economic bridge, talking about a bridge of modern diplomacy, under the auspices of, governmental diplomacy, sort of citizen diplomats kind of thing.
That's right.
And that's the bridge to Asia that people talk about. But in fact, it's much more complicated than that.
It is because culture is really the foundation of everything we do. Although we kind of set it aside to say, oh, we're not dealing with the culture, but that really defines who we are and how we interact with people. And so I think the cultural exchange, cultural understanding is an important part of the globalized world. And I think the Shen Yun company is doing a great job at bringing that to the forefront. And I want to give the audience here some kind of inside information about this company that other people may not be aware of. So there are 3 companies touring simultaneously. There are about 90 to 100 people coming
3
here.
companies of Shenyang?
3 companies of Shen Yun touring simultaneously.
Right now, today?
Right now.
Oh.
One in North America, one in Europe, the other one is Asian Pacific.
Major.
So the one that's coming here to Honolulu
Is the best one.
right now.
It's the best one.
They're all equally
Okay.
wonderful. So right now, that company is showing performing in Taiwan. So they are from Taiwan. They go to Japan, and then they come here. Not quite their last stop, and then they go back to upstate New York for a couple of more shows, and they finish the season. And then they prepare for the next season and start again in December for their next season.
Oh, so it goes December through what?
It's December through May.
All around the world.
All around the world.
Yeah.
So people can find on the Shen Yun website, shenyun.com, to see their annual tour, global tour. Because some people are traveling and say, oh, I'm going to miss that show. Well, maybe go to the next city you're
Go
going, and
next
maybe
year
you'll
and
see it
see,
there.
yeah. So I just wonder if I'm from China today and I'm on a visa, say a tourist visa, and I come here to Hawaii and I come here on May 3rd.
Yeah, yeah.
Am I going to be interested in coming to see this show? Am I going to be specially interested am I going to be worried in coming to see this show? What are my thoughts on that?
Okay, I think there are two reactions for people coming from China. It's interesting because the Shen Yun show, because it doesn't go to China, and the Chinese government doesn't allow the Shen Yun to go to China. Some Chinese have heard about it and say, oh, this is a show that's censored from China by the Chinese government. So some people fear that if they go, they're going to be, their names are going to be, their faces are going to be recognized, and somebody is going to tell the Chinese government, and therefore they fear about coming. So that's one reaction. And that's just telling you how much fear there is, even for people who are coming out of China. They still think the Chinese government is after them. So that's one reaction. The other reaction.
Well, it's not without some substance.
You are
either.
right. The Chinese government is.
I can see some fella taking, photographs.
One thing though, this show doesn't allow any photo. So that actually
even of the other members of the audience.
That's right. Yeah, it doesn't protect. That protects people because no photo taking with the show. So that's one. Another reaction is a really exciting opportunity. Some people fly out of China just to see the Shen Yun show.
Really?
I've heard.
Very interesting.
I've heard government, people working in the government, they come to see the Shen Yun show, but they really don't want to
wear a little mustache.
That's right. They don't want to reveal themselves, so those two reactions, and it's very interesting. The Chinese government, partly about this show, Shen Yun show. Why does the Chinese government not wanting it? One thing is the idea of Shen Yun is about looking at Chinese culture from a very spiritual perspective. It's about looking at Chinese culture as bestowed by the heavens. It's about going back to the Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism.
Before 1949.
Before 1949. It's about a pre-communist culture. And that's a statement the Communist Party doesn't like, of course, right? And there are also some of the key players in the show are practicing Falun Gong, and they also use Falun Gong as their material for the dance, right? So all of these are normalizing Falun Gong as an important part of Chinese cultural tradition, and the Falun Gong is persecuted in China. So for this reason, for people who don't really understand all the Chinese culture and the Communist Party's rhetoric, that they put out about Falun Gong being evil and everything, people think, is this show a political show? I said, far from it. Even my human rights work, I don't see that as being political.
So I shouldn't be worried about going.
No, not at all. Well, I don't know how far the Chinese government hands can go, but I don't think so. Yeah.
So what do you expect is going to happen? I mean, is this going to be sold out like the other places, like in Las Vegas and where did you say, San Diego or Los Angeles?
San Francisco. They just finished the Las Vegas show and San Francisco show, and they were sold out.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it's sold out. It will be sold out in Honolulu. The show has been here in the last 5 years. A lot of people have seen the ads, and a lot of people don't know what kind of show it is. And
hopefully they'll see this and they'll know more.
That's right. They'll know more about it. Again, we're talking
actually,
about
it's pretty sexy when you take it all together. It's a pretty sexy experience to go and see this. It's like, in some ways, it's the forbidden fruit,
Yeah, that's right. From the Chinese government perspective, that's right. But and then when the Chinese people see the show, they are reacting like me. They really rediscover the treasure of the Chinese culture, and they said, now I get it.
That's really valuable. That makes your whole day. So what about the breakdown? Will it be, if I go, will it be, well, I will go, but will it be mostly Chinese people?
No.
Will it be a lot of Haole people too?
Mostly like, people from all kind of tracks of life, just like a miniature of the composition of the society here. You probably see a little bit more Asian people, but you see all kinds of people going.
Yeah, we should all study it.
The reason being, this is the Shen Yun is a world-class show. It's not a Chinese show. And it's seen as such.
I want to see the athletics.
I
want to see the colors.
I
want to see the stories. I want to know the stories, because from what you said, I need to know those stories. I need to fully appreciate, China, which is undeniably important in our
That's
world.
right, yeah.
Always was and always will be.
Exactly. Yeah.
I need to appreciate what makes the Chinese tick.
Okay.
And this will help me understand what makes them
That's
tick.
right. Yeah. You know, the Chinese culture is a culture that it's almost like you have to experience it. Maybe it's for all cultures, and maybe the Chinese culture more so because it's kind of more subtle, and a lot of the messages in the stories, if you experience it, then you gain a whole new perspective about culture, about arts. And the one thing about the background of a classical Chinese dance, like I said, it has a history of over 3,000 years. And in the ancient times, this is the dance form that's played, appreciated by the court, by the empress. And the derivative of this is the acrobatics. And the acrobatics come from Chinese dance, but that is seen on the street by folks. Everywhere, you know, on the street you can see a lot of, acrobatic
So
shows.
it came from the courts, but
came from the courts.
It went to the people.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I'll see you there at the actual show.
I hope to see you there.
Hong Jiang, but after the show, maybe you could come back and give us a review of exactly how it went.
Okay, definitely.
And
I'd be happy
what
to do
points
so.
really touched you this time?
Yeah. We can, go over some of the stories that's going to be played at the Shen Yun show this year. The reason being, just the center area is good because the show has a huge backdrop. And the backdrop is part of the show. I mean, I gave you examples of how the Monkey King will fly to the mountains, to the mountains and to the heavens, and come down to the stage, and it's all done by the backdrop. The backdrop is an important part of the show, and you want to kind of appreciate the whole of the backdrop, to be kind of in it. So because of that, it's good to be in the center area, and you can see they do a lot of formations. It's amazing. They do synchronizing formations, and everybody's jumping and doing the same thing, or synchronized things that from the central location, you see the formation better.
Just as good as the Olympics, right?
Much better. I have to say much better. Yeah.
Thank you, Hong Jiang.
Well, thank you, Jay.
Come back soon.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Great. You're keeping the time really well.
Close.
Oh, I don't see it. I don't see
No,
the
that's
time,
why
but you
it's
can
there.
see it. Yeah.
So you shouldn't worry about it.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was